church, shared the same friend groups at church. And then when I moved to LA, he Facebooked me.
Did you write on your wall or it was like a private message?
No, it was a private message, but he was like, hey, do you still live in LA? That's a lie. The first message was, I was in this music video and he was like, hey, who is that in the music video, in the picture that you're in? And I'm like, oh, it's Young Berg. And he goes, oh, I should have known. He always has all the sexy ladies. And I was like, what is happening right now?
You're like, Steph, I knew you said you're 14. I was 15. What are you trying to do right now?
At this time now, we're 19.
Okay.
18, 19. And so he goes, do you still live in LA? I'm here for a camp. Do you want to hang out? And I'm like freaking out because this guy, he was like the guy at church. Like all the girls loved him.
I thought you were gonna say like in high school, like on the court. You're like, at church, he was the guy.
At church.
Was he the basketball guy in high school or no?
Apparently he was, but I genuinely didn't pay attention to that because I grew up in such an arts driven.
All right, cool. So hey guys, quick one, because I know a lot of people are talking about Ayesha Curry recently. It's gone viral again. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody has an opinion. I want to be very real with you. I think a couple of years ago, I did a video on Ayesha Curry, and I said, I totally understand where she was coming from when she said she doesn't get any male attention. In fact, I have a video clip of that particular video here. Let me just play this little video for you to remind you of that clip that I said. And I actually went, my video actually went viral that day because all the men were on my
and
neck.
Like honestly has given me a sense of a little bit of an insecurity is the fact that, yeah, like there are all these women like throwing themselves. But me, like the past 10 years, like I don't have any of that. Like I have zero, this sounds weird, but like male attention. And so then like I begin to internalize it and I'm like, is something wrong with me?
You're not looking.
All right, a couple of years ago, I did a video and I was in support of Ayesha Curry. I said, listen, before anyone drags her, I totally get it. The video did like 200K views in like a day because the men were calling me simps all the way through. It was what it was, right? Here's the key thing. Obviously, at that point in time in my life, right, understanding dynamics between relationships, I would say personally that I favored women and their gripes more than I did with men. I'm going to be honest with you. So the men were actually correct. I was a little bit of a simp, quote unquote, to say, right? As I spent more time with myself, as I spent more time in my masculine energy, as I spent more time with the man them as well, to really understand their gripes and understand their issues around relationships, I now see the situation completely differently. Right now, I titled this title. Obviously, Kevin Samuels was right about Ayesha Curry disrespecting, and someone's already said, "Oh, I knew you secretly supported Kevin Samuels." No, I haven't changed my mind on Kevin Samuels, and you haven't seen me do a video yet about that. But what I would say about this scenario is that when we're talking about relationships and marriage, I want to give you an example of why I feel like this is disrespectful. Okay, I've done countless videos talking about men who come out, husbands who come out and say, "My wife wasn't my preference." And we all go, oh my God, what the hell is he saying? Why is he saying that his wife wasn't his preference? Because we all know exactly what that means, right? Maybe I can make it a bit more easier. If I come out and I have a wife and I say to you guys, you know, I didn't really see my life going this way. You know, I didn't see my life. I didn't see myself. I didn't see marriage. I didn't see kids in my life, you know, but they're here now. You know what I mean? They're here now. You know, and I find myself getting lost a lot of times in whether I'm a husband or whether I'm really trying to be, you know, this man that wants to have his business. You know what you tell me? You tell me, Kojo, get on with it. You would tell me, get on with life. Why are you complaining? The next thing you start telling me is this man's about to cheat or he's about to hurt this woman that he's in a relationship with. As soon as you hear any dissent from a man coming from his lips, we'd automatically start saying that man hates her. He hates women. He hates this. He hates that. He hates that. He hates this. We're quick to label men. And you know what? I don't disagree with you because you're absolutely right. But when we start, see, I've also started paying attention to how women also learn how to disrespect. It's oftentimes a little bit more indirect, right? It's not so much they're going to say he's an idiot or he's a fool. What they start doing is little things that begin to break the image of their relationship. Now, everybody knows they're not perfect. We're not even making them couple goals. What we're talking about is how we discuss something. So I'm going to go back to this interview. It's going to be really interesting because the part she's going to talk about, right, it gets a bit confusing in some of the parts that she discusses. But what's really key is that when you are a unit, I don't want to be exposing you to other people outside of our relationship that can now begin to say some stuff about you, right? She's exposed to this relationship on numerous occasions. Now, when I did it a couple of years ago and I spoke about it, I'm going to play it one more time for you just to remind you again. When I played it a few years ago, I said I understood how she felt, and I did. And here's what I've also learned: shut the frick up. Why are we? Shut up. Men do this, women do that. I tell the same thing to both the men and the women. Shut up. Why is it everything you must say? Husbands out here talking about that she's not my preference. Women out here talking about how, I didn't want a husband, I didn't want a kids, and then if you actually listen to the interview, it's really confusing because she talks about how she never had a crush on him, then she always had a crush on him. And we're like, wait, whoa, did you always have a crush on him? Or do you not have a crush on him? Which one was it? Oh, I never saw friendship. But they never really explains how if I never saw anything more with him, but I always had a crush on him, why didn't you mention that? Do you get what I'm saying to you? Like, so it's very interesting. So when if a man can, in fact, let me just put this in perspective, right? And I think that's why a lot of men are still got the mindset with Ayesha, because they haven't got the past video, which I understand. They haven't got that past video with Jada Pinkett, right? But there's other videos too, right? There's other videos where she was on The Real and she started getting hot and bothered about a man, okay, who came out, and she was like, "Oh, like, let me find if I can find that video if I have it. Yes, I do have it. Let me send it to myself. Hold on." So you can actually watch it, right? And she was doing all that. She's hot and bothered by the fact that this man is coming out and is very hot. And I was like, okay, if a husband did this, how would we look at the scenario? Would we label him that he hates his wife? He's about to cheat. He's about to do this stuff. And then we don't start making excuses about how we can understand how this behavior could be. Now, I don't get twisted. I can understand. Don't get twisted. I really can understand. I'm not saying I can't. I'm saying to you, we wouldn't be making any excuses though, right? We wouldn't, because we'd automatically see it as disrespectful to the partner that you're actually in the relationship with. Now, the actual interview of Call Me Daddy isn't that bad. I'll be honest with you. It's like subtle hints of certain things. I actually can, again, understand where she's coming from. I really can. But then that's why I said I agree with Kevin Samuels a little bit here, right? Because there's something that he says, which I'm like, damn, like I hate the fact that he might be a little bit right. I hate the fact that he could be correct. Broken clocks are right twice in a day. So shoot, I shouldn't be too heavy on the man. But let me show you the real clip as well, and then go to the Kevin Samuels one for you as well to break this down, okay?
I think it's time for a drink. What do you say?
Absolutely.
Yes, we get to drink. Marcel!
Hold on, let me just go back. Now, if a man was to take off his ring jokingly, as a woman came out and be like, "Hey boys, what would you say about that husband?" What would be the first word? In fact, we're live, so you can type it in the chat. If you saw a husband about to pull his ring off jokingly, because a bad bee walked into the room, what would be the first words that would come out your mouth? Type it in the chat for me. Let's see if we can be honest. Let's see if we can really be honest. If you're watching this on replay, type your first comment into the comment section. What would be your first words that would come out of your mouth if you saw a husband who says they love their wife and a woman comes out and they want to pull off their ring? What would be your first words? Right? Your words will not be pretty. Your words will not be, we understand he's joking, right? We wouldn't be saying that. Why? Because we totally understand that behavior is inappropriate. And for you to do that, especially on national television, there are some jokes that don't need to ever be made in public eye. Like, you do that with your friends, you do that with your friends. We all know there's certain jokes that we make with our friends. Nobody cares about those ones because nobody knows. It's between you and your friends. Okay, there are certain jokes that you guys are gonna make. Yeah. You might have seen somebody who's beautiful and you comment on it. Yeah, because you're with friends. Nobody's gonna talk about that. You're in your own section. But on national television, so I'm looking at it from that perspective and looking at the fact that she said she doesn't get no male attention, and now she's talking about the ring. And so now when she comes on this podcast and talks about how she never wanted kids and never wanted this, but she wanted her career, let's go to it now, right? And that's why people are going to feel some type of way about what she's saying. Right? That's why people feel some type of way, because they're looking at the previous infractions before we got to here. It's not just, oh, she just said something on a podcast and da-da-da. No, people are putting 2 and 2 together. Now, I want to put this little thing here. It's interesting because this is give me some respect, right?
Never marry a woman who thinks she's better than you.
I just didn't think it was going to be a thing. I thought we would be friends. Yeah.
Did you ever have anything in high school?
Like, did not find.
This sounds weird, but like male attention. And so
As your success continues to rise, their anger, their resentment, their animosity towards you will continue to rise. So outwardly, people will look at you and say, oh, she's so lucky to have this man. He's a multi-millionaire, a good family man, all these other things. And all she's sitting there and saying, it should be me. I'm better than him.
Now, it's interesting. I hope I don't get copyright. If I do, I just have to take the video off. But yeah, so it's really interesting because that interview, I hadn't ever heard of Ayesha's actual story. So if we go to her actual story, it actually lines up with what he said. I was so annoyed. I said, damn, can't be like Kevin Savage is talking from the grave and be correct. But this genuinely did happen, right? So I'm going to just put this to the stage if I can, if my computer wants to play nice or whatever. Hold on now. Let's put this here. Hold on. Let's take this off. There we go. Okay. Let's bring this back, right? So let's just listen a bit because she's going to tell us about her career before Steph Curry, right?
And like, what did you want?
It's interesting because I don't ever, I think, get the opportunity to kind of talk about my life before my life now. And so, yeah, I graduated high school a year early. At the time, I was living in North Carolina. And I'd been in the industry since I was 3 years old. I was always working. Commercial, print, like doing TV stuff, always. So other kids were at like soccer, doing the extracurriculars, and I was on a set working. And so it was second nature for me. And quite honestly, growing up, the only thing that I thought I could do. And so I would enter all of these competitions. I entered this one in North Carolina, and they were like, hey, move to LA. And I grew up, I think it's really important to preface, I grew up in like the most strict environment, like didn't get to go to high school football games, didn't get to really hang out with my friends, damn sure couldn't like walk around the mall by myself. But when these people were like, hey, you want to move to LA? They were like, yeah, go.
Your parents were like, have fun, honey. You're like,
go. Like, you're going to do it. And I appreciate it because that means they believed in me so much.
Let's get a bit of a quick understanding here. What's happening? So she obviously was a child star. She started at 3 years old. She was in acting. We've seen her on Hannah Montana, right? So her trajectory of her life, what she saw it as being is she's gonna hit the heights in LA because she actually moved to LA, right? So by 1920, she's in LA. She's thinking to herself, I'm probably going to be a movie star. I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to have this, that, and that, right? And what that is that when you're somebody, and it's actually interesting because this is also in alignment with Robert Greene as well in terms of the art of seduction and about the fallen star, the person who thought they were going to be a star but then falls, right? That how they get seduced by people. Anyway, but yeah, so she already had a vision for her life. She did have her vision for her life was not kids and marriage. That's the truth. Who's calling me? Oh, sorry. Hold on. Damn, man. Hold on 2 seconds. I'll be clicking up in the things. Getting these mad calls. All right, cool. Sorry. All right, cool. So she obviously felt like she was going to be a movie star, going to be big, she was going to blow up, she's going to be a massive star, it's going to be crazy, right? And it doesn't happen because marriage and kids, what she never saw, then came in the way. Okay, all right, then came in the way. Okay, and that changed her trajectory. And do you know how we know? Because she actually then talks about it a little bit later on. We'll just have a little.
But at the same time, our entire family was like, "This is crazy. Like, you can't even carpool."
Okay, wait. You starting at 3, was it because like your mom just saw something in you? Barry and Carl, good names for uncles, right? Okay, you end up moving to the Bay Area.
Yes.
With Steph. Talk to me about for you what went into that decision.
It was exciting. I think initially, when they called his name, we were like kicking each other under the table because nobody really knew where that was. But then the next morning,
now let's talk about you as an individual though, because you had this dream. And did you feel like in moving with him, did you feel like you had to pick between your career and your relationship at that point?
Yes. to an extent. That was never presented in front of me that way. It just kind of had to be that way. And because after we got married, we found out we were pregnant with our daughters so quickly, I didn't even have time to think about what I wanted anymore. It's so interesting. I spent my entire life like trying to work towards something, and then it kind of just disappeared, and I didn't think twice about it. But after my daughter turned 1, I remember there being a shift and being like, I have goals for myself. Like, this doesn't feel right. I love being a mom, but I love doing other things too. And I need to get my shit together and figure out what that looks like for myself now.
Okay, rewind.
Okay, so as she let us know, because she had a kid, what ended up happening is that her whole dream went out the window. Okay, now, of course, being young, being fresh, they got married, and then within a year, they got pregnant. So that she actually goes on to say that she thought for a whole year they would have time to have fun and enjoy themselves. It didn't happen. And so actually what then ends up happening is that there is quiet resentment that begins to build. All right. Quiet resentment that begins to build because now she can't live her dream the way she wants to. Okay. All right. So, in this figure space, right? And so now she's, and again, I want to put it into perspective. Okay. All right. I want to put it into perspective. There is actually nothing wrong with what she said. Here's the problem. Shut up. I keep telling y'all, y'all gonna ruin your relationships by keep talking. Shut the frick up. Shut up. Shut up. Nobody needs to know you didn't want kids. Nobody doesn't need to know that you didn't want marriage. Nobody needs to know that you're suffering in the resentment of the fact that you couldn't have this thing. Shut up. Here's why I'm going to tell you to shut up. If a man comes out and is a husband and says, you know what, I really resent the fact that I have to be a provider for my family. And, I had other aspirations. I felt like I could have done so many other things, but because of my family, that dream was taken away from me. What would you say about that husband? What would you say about that man? Would you also tell him to shut the frick up? You would. You tell him to shut the frick up. You say this man hates his family and he hates the wife that he's with. That's why he's talking the way he's talking. So if we can say that about a man in a way that he would behave, because if he was to come out and say, I really resent being a provider. I really, I hate the fact that, man's got to give up his dreams. I've got to give up this. I've got to give up that to do this, da 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 da. You'll be like, why are we in a group chat? Why are we being told this? Like, why are you telling us this information? Shut the frick up. Shut the frick up. Honestly, the men and the women, shut the frick up. Some of you talk too much about your relationships in public spheres in a way that is not encouraging and actually more detrimental. Like she said, do you know what Ayesha's problem is? She's an oversharer. She doesn't know when to keep her mouth shut. This is the biggest issue she has. She's an oversharer. She actually tells us this. She says she's gone to therapy, but the biggest issue is that she keeps telling people things. She says she tells Steph Curry everything. Shut the frick up. Keep quiet. Stop talking about it like this way. And I'm not saying that you can't share difficult struggles you've been through, but when you start talking about it in a particular way that's undefined and unrefined, we get really stupid interviews, and then you say stuff that exposes your whole relationship. Right? I actually agree with her. I actually understand where she's coming from. I can actually empathize to some degree, because of course I'm not a woman. I can really sympathize with her perspective, right? But some things just don't need to be said out loud. It's like there's some things in my head. I am sure if I was to tell you, have you had a moment where you've been walking down the street and felt yourself to randomly want to slap somebody? I'm sure we've all had that thought. But you know what? I don't need to say it out loud. Some things need to be kept inside of your head. Okay? Some things need to be kept inside of your head. Yes, I want her to keep her mouth shut. Yes. Some things need to be kept quiet. Some of you talk too much. You think by sharing you're connecting. No, you're destroying your connection. Keep quiet. Keep quiet. I said the same thing about the men. Shut up. And I'm saying it harshly to get the idea in your head. Both men and women need to understand this. Shut up. Because you're saying stuff that's bringing more heat and more attention to your relationship that isn't helping you. It's making everybody else say something about your relationship that need not be said. But whenever you see, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. Out of the heart, the abundance, it begins to speak. And the funny thing is, she has a therapist, but she still wants to talk on podcasts. Shut up. Is she wrong for saying, listen, I go out on the street and I don't get no attention? Is she wrong for that? No, but we don't need to know that. Your therapist needs to know that. It's like a hidden conversation that we never really need to speak about. We all know the truth. You think that when you get to 40 as a husband and I've got kids and a wife, you think I don't want to still look good? You think I don't still have the urge to go and talk to women? You think I don't have the urge to go and show my prowess? Show that I've got money and I've got this. If I come out on a podcast and I say, guys, I want to be really honest with you. You know what? Since I've dated my wife and had my ring on, I can't lie to you. Like, I really haven't had the opportunity to be able to, get the attention that I've always wanted. I'm like, bro, it's a mazza. I'm like, bro, why are you telling us all this on the net for, bro? Why are you telling us that you want to talk to girls on the net? What the hell are you talking about? That's what we're talking about. It needs not be said. Some things just don't need to be said. We're a generation that comes out and says everything. Shut up. Shut the frick up. Shut the frick up. That's my one piece of advice. Shut the frick up. Okay? Ask Holy Spirit if you can speak first. Because some of y'all be talking out your ass. Keep quiet. You know what I mean? Not everything needs to be said. I'm not saying you have to be so opaque. What I'm saying to you is that learn how to understand that certain things are so need to be said.
And 2 steps.
Yeah.
Married at 22.
Yeah.
How did you know you were ready for that?
I didn't. I just knew that I loved him, and I'd never experienced anything else. I'd never felt any differently than this is who I want to spend the rest of my life with. And so we kind of just dove in. And
did anyone or you or Steph or anyone have any hesitations about we're getting married in our early 20s, or no?
No. And I say this all the time to our family. I'm like, you guys, 22. I'm like, you guys, and we love you and we love you and it's going to be great. It's just polished 22-year-old. I didn't have very much life experience. And so it's just interesting.
Anyway, listen, look, I'm gonna come back to this. My time is up. I gotta go. I gotta come in. The key thing here is it's not even Ayesha even knowing herself. She's not content. It's not about knowing herself. She's not content because she had an idea for herself and Steph wasn't it. Let's be freaking honest. Steph was not the idea in her life. This is why I keep saying this is my honest opinion. As much as she wants to cloud it up and put some lipstick on it, okay, Steph was never the guy. It just is what it is. You know what I mean? And then she's gonna pretend and do what Stephen Biles' husband also does as well. I didn't even know who Stephen Biles was. Shut the frick up. Stop lying to us, bro. Now you don't know who Stephen Biles is, and she gonna tell us I didn't know Steph Curry. I didn't know that Steph Curry was going to be a thing. He said he was going to be a basketball player. So when he had to make a decision to get drafted, you weren't paying attention. You didn't. So at this young age, you didn't know this man would become something. You started dating at 19, 20. He was off to camp. Shut the frick up. Shut the frick up. This is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes you talk too much. Shut the frick up. You talk too much. It's getting you into hot water. It's getting you into trouble. Anyway, I gotta go because I'm late. I'm late. I gotta go. I'll be back a little bit later on. We'll discuss this later on. But sometimes my key thing of this video is shut up. That's my key thing. If you haven't heard anything else in the 23 minutes, shut up. Before you open your mouth and say that thing about your partner, think about it this way. If they said the same thing about you, how would you feel? Number one. Number two, could you say that in front of them if you were in public? If you know you can't, don't open the mic to open your mouth and say something. Okay, so we can see that Ayesha is not content and has not been content for a very long time because I think she's coming out of her mold, and it's got nothing to do with Steph Curry, by the way. This is everything to do with Ayesha. Okay, all right, because Ayesha grew up in a household where she was very strict. The parents are very Christian, and they probably had a path for her life and everything like that. And so for her, she honestly probably thought to herself, this is all I can do. Church, when you grow up in church and you have a church mindset and you finally get out into the world, you're having a Tyler Perry Temptations moment. Oh, there's more to the world? You know? I hear you, Charm. I hear you. And I get it. I understand. I want you to understand that identifying how she feels is not a problem. There's nothing wrong with it because her actual feelings are very true. I just want you to be very careful and wonder if you were okay with a man and a husband saying the same thing about you. If you are comfortable with your husband saying the exact same thing she said, or a boyfriend saying the exact same thing he said about what she said about Steph Curry and said the same thing about you in the exact same way, be cool. Don't worry about it. If you know you're gonna be cool with it, yeah, you go ahead. Right? But most of us wouldn't be cool. We say it's cool because we can understand and we empathize the fact that she's a woman and yes, she has children and yes, she's had a career that stopped. So we can identify that part. But remember, when things get said out loud, okay, just remember, if it was said about you, be careful. If you know you'd feel some type of way if it was said about you, would you want your partner saying the exact same thing? Would you want your husband saying, do you know what? I ain't gonna lie to you. Since I've become a husband, you know, I never had it in my mind that I was gonna have a husband. I never had it in my mind I was gonna get married. Never had it in my mind I was gonna have kids. You know, never in my mind that also, if you know, I also start to feel like, you know, when I got married, that all my dreams had to be on hold. So basically, what they're saying is, all their dreams got on hold since they got with you. Would you be okay with that? If you heard your husband say, all my dreams got put on hold, I am not saying that they can't say it to you. They should say it to you behind the scenes. They should say it behind the door. They should say it behind in your room. They should say it to you in your house. We don't need to hear that stuff. Okay? Let it be said in your house. Some things don't need to come out on a podcast mic. Put it down. Thank you. I'll be back. Okay? It's all Zaza business. Nonsense. You know what I mean? But we're going to have a real conversation about it. I appreciate it, guys. Stay locked. So we'll see you again soon. Much love.